Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us today at 5:30 p.m. for our this beginning of this series of seminars, which is known as Leading Meaningful Lives. You all of you have made a very wonderful decision to be with us in this seminar. Now, we would like to introduce the speaker of our seminar. We are introducing you to one of our leading leads faculty, whose name is Mr. Mayank Bhasin. He has been pioneer in establishing and building many Seva projects all around India, inspiring and guiding scores of youth from various colleges and companies. Mr. Mayank is a computer science graduate, BTech honors from IIT Kharagpur. He has worked in leading architectural positions in HSBC, Global Software Limited, and CPN Bangalore. He has been a topper throughout his school and ISC days in whole Dehradun district. Mr. Mayank is the project advisor for Kharagpur, MERI, and Jadavpur University Campus 1. He had played a foundational role in setting up Voice or Seva projects in Singer Institute of Technology, Pune from 2005 to 2007, College of Engineering, Pune, that's COEP, from 2006 to 2007, Indian Institute of Science and Engineering, Pune, in 2007. Mr. Mayank has been a leading architect to set up inspirational spiritual guidance programs for IIT JEE in Kota, and he worked upon that in 2006 to 2007. He had a radical contribution in voice setups in BMC Bangalore also from 2007 to 2008. He was a visiting preacher, counselor, guide for IIM Bangalore students. Since 2010, Mr. Mayank's focus is on training value education and ethics to students at IIT Kharagpur, Jadavpur University, MERI Kolkata, and other local Kolkata colleges. He has laid a keynote foundation in establishing the startup venture Transenigma Private Limited since 2012. Also pioneering educational and self-help upliftment drive for tribal youth called India Tribal Care Initiatives and Trans-Evolve Trust since 2016. Parallelly, Mr. Mayank is also pursuing PhD in spatio-temporal structure of concept representation from University of Melbourne and IIT Kharagpur joint PhD program. He is working on experimental quantum computing in collaboration with Center for Quantum Technologies, NUS, that's National University of Singapore. His research interests include quantum mechanics, nano self-assembly, and behavioral analytics. Mr. Mayank had a major role in aspiring website www.leadservices.org, which is an intellectual marketplace for drowning in pool of inspiration, intellectual titillation, and plethora of logic. He has given many corporate seminars in various clubs and organizations on personality development, time management, stress management, and so on. Mr. Mayank is expert in guiding and counseling students in practical applications of spirituality in daily life, balancing between studies and spirituality, work and spirituality. So let us welcome our speaker, Mr. Mayank Bhasin, and thank you for being with us. Please stay tuned.
Can you bring my clock from that so I can see time? There is a clock on the cupboard. If it is placed here, I can see the time. A very good evening for all of you. I welcome all of you to our uh, seminar series called as Leading Meaningful Lives. And today we are going to discuss the first session in Leading Meaningful Lives. Mastermind behind the mysterious universe. This is the first probe in our quest to find meaning in our existence, in our lives, in our moves, in our hearts. One time, there was a small loving family. The father, mother, showering their profuse love on their son. But many times, as the law of the world goes, although the father and mother were arranging for everything needed for the son, their love and care was oceanic. But despite that, many times, even after being taken care of, we see children get pampered, they get spoiled, their demands increase. So, in this way, in the family, the child started becoming more and more stubborn. His demands started increasing. In geometric progression, in exponential progressions. And therefore, the child was becoming more and more adamant, more and more rebellious, more and more infuriated. So much so that one time there was a small discrepancy, and the child became so angry. He was so angry. He said, you people, you don't take care of me. I am going to leave the house. It was 11 o'clock in the night. And it was, now to parents, in one sense, to saturate this issue by force is an easy mechanism. But one of the responsibilities of parents is to teach the child. And therefore, the father started bargaining with the child. He said, so where you're going to go? He said, you think I'm a small kid? I'm going to prove myself. I have become so much grown up. I will find my way. I will make my way. I don't need any of you. The father said, okay, very nice. It's very good to see that you have gone mature. But what is your plan? Where are you going to go after stepping out of this house? The child says, hell with you, hell with your house. I am going out. And the father said, you see, I have a proposal for you. You can consider if you like. And the child says, the only proposal is, or the only decision is, I don't want to see your face and I don't want to see mother's face. And the mother was crying tears. But the father was telling, please hear the proposal. He said, we have an extension house or some extension rooms next to us. So the tenants have vacated, it's empty. Why don't you go and stay there? And the child says, I don't want to see both of you. And the father said, you will not see both of us. The extension has a gate which is on the right side. So you come and go from the right side. And we come and go from the front side. You are not going to see both of us. You're away from both of us. So the child considered, it was 11:30, about to be midnight. So he thought, okay, good proposal. So he went into the extension house and he slept off. And while he was sleeping off, remembering how many times his mother had not given him chocolates and how many times his father didn't purchase toys what he demanded. So he was thinking like this in a fit of anger and he slept off without worrying about anything else. The only recluse he had, or the only reconciliation he had, was that there is no father, there is no mother whom he can see around. He was sleeping sound. All of a sudden, he got up and he was wondering how did he get up. And he saw a big alarm was ringing. But he never kept an alarm in the night. So he was wondering. Anyhow, it was 7 o'clock and he realized he had to go to school and he had test. And he was wondering, okay, now what to do? So So he just got up from the bed. He went to the bathroom. He saw the towel was arranged very nicely. There was soap kit. There was brush. There was toothpaste. There was warm water for him. So he took a bath and came out. He saw his school dress nicely pressed and kept on the bed. But there was no father and there was no mother. And then he came out into the lobby. So he saw on a table there was puri halwa, or puri sabji halwa was kept for him. Glass of milk was kept for him. Tiffin was kept for him. School bag was kept for him. But there was no father and there was no mother. And anyhow, it was getting late, so he took all that and he went to the school. And when he came back to the extension house, again there was no father, no mother. But he saw all his bed was nicely arranged. A new bed sheet was kept. The clothes what he had thrown off, the night clothes were washed. A new pair of fresh clothes was kept for him. The lunch was kept for him. But no father, no mother. Much is the story of this world, which is nothing but an extension house of the home of God. So, yes, externally, we don't see God anywhere. But the Vedic texts, the Vedic Shastras, and the saintly teachers tell us there is God everywhere. There is God everywhere. Because this is an extension house. One time, a friend had visited the house of Sir Isaac Newton, and this is his philosophy of life. He said that everything in this world has come by chance. This entire concept of God, it is a hypothetical concept just to bring about some peace. It is just like a crutch for the weaklings. Because if God exists, then why is there suffering all around? Why is there suffering all around? And Newton was hearing. He said, yes, yes. Newton heard patiently. He was a good listener as well. And he said, okay, my dear friend, it's late tonight. Let's reconvene our discussion tomorrow evening. Why don't you drop in at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening at my place? And the friend said, okay, all good. No worries. The next day evening, the friend again came. And when he came, the friend saw in the drawing room of Sir Isaac Newton's, on one of the table, there was a magnificent, awesome, marvelous display, a working model of the universe, which was looking so precise, so exquisite, so articulated. This was a working model. and he could see all the planets in their relative sizes with their relative precise distances from the sun, and they were moving with relative velocities around the sun. And when the friend saw that, the friend asked, "Wow, where did you get it from?" Newton was looking really grave. And Newton was looking around, and Newton was looking around, and Newton said, "I don't know. Yesterday, I bought some balls, some wooden metallic balls for my children. And in the morning when I got up, I'm seeing all this. I don't know where it has come from." And the friend said, "Ah, you're joking with me, man. I'm not drunk at this hour of the evening. You please tell me where you got it from because I'm so excited that I want to purchase it." And Newton said, "I really don't know. All I can say, I mean, as per the definition, if you want to say, so, in a very objective way, in a very objective fashion, if you want to say, I can only say that it's come by chance. Chance." And the friend became agitated, and the friend said, "You are joking with me? You don't want me to have it? What is this? This is not fair. I'm a scientist like you." And then Newton started speaking. He spoke some very profound words. He said, "You're not ready to believe that this working exquisite model has come by chance. My dear friend, how can you believe that the reality of which this is just an imitation, this machinery is just a simulation, a stimulation, when that has not come by chance, how can the reality per se, which is thousands and millions of times of magnitude more complex than this, can come by chance?" So many times people say, "How should I, why should I believe in God? I cannot see God. If God exists, can you show me God? Can you show me? Show me where is God? I will have a count of 10. Let's have a countdown. Let's have a challenge. Take it up." Many times people say that. I remember when I was in my second year of engineering in IIT Kharagpur. So it was the felicitation program for the certificate giving ceremony. I mean, for the pass outs. The pass outs had gone into their companies, and then this is the time they had returned back for their felicitation program. So I remember in our hall there was uh, one of the toppers of IIT. He was the gold medalist. He was 9.8 CGPA. He from electronics. Uh, so for common KGP Janta, he was considered as a god. Yeah. It was as if our whole gods have come back. So he was a god of studies, career, like that. So that kind of aura, with that style, he was walking in our hall in the night. There was a party. So so many of my seniors were introducing me, and they were telling him, "This fellow, He seems to have some good potential. Some grey matter is there in this fellow, but it is all being misutilized because he's channelizing everything in spirituality. He has become so serious about spirituality. Please give him some funda. Please set him all right. इसका बुद्धि भ्रष्ट हो गया है, इसको ठीक करो. अच्छा खासा था, कंप्यूटर साइंस में आया, अब पता नहीं क्या हो गया है. So this person said, okay, okay, I will handle the case. And he came, he sat on the front chair, and there were 10, 15 seniors all around me. So like, so I was like a small little boy, just like Abhimanyu in this Chakravyuh, and all of them had surrounded me. And he was challenging me. And his challenge question was the same. If God exists, you show me God. How can you give your time, your energy, your intelligence, everything, when you cannot see God? So I was a small boy, I didn't know much. I was not so mature in spirituality also. But I was remembering some of the teachings, what I had read in Gita, some of the teachings, Srila Prabhupada. And then I started explaining to him. I said, how many years do you spend in getting selected in JE, Joint Entrance Examination? He said, from class 9th only I was studying. Generally people study from 11th. He said, I was foundation. I said, okay, really, amazing. And then he said, I went to Kota. And I was there in Bansal. And I was in, I said, really? And he said, I was slogging like anything. I was in the top batch. All the mock examinations. I said, really, wonderful. And then he said, I came to Kharagpur from semester 1. I'm hitting, no semester I got below 9.5. And I was working really, really hard for that. So, really amazing. So he thought I'm asking his no success formulas or something like that. Therefore, he was explaining very enthusiastically. And I heard him. And after that, I told him one simple thing which we have learned from our teachers. I told him one simple thing. And I told him that you see, if you follow by your logic, by your funda, if you want to follow and stand by your funda in life, you should resign from your job as a scientist at Intel. You should burn off your degree. And he was angry. He said, what is this nonsense this fellow is talking? Then I started explaining. And I said, you started from class 9th, burning the midnight oil to get a seat in IIT, to get an admission in a department in IIT, and then you were slogging the no, day and night to get good grades, to get a good CGPA, and now you're slogging day and night in Intel laboratories in R&D, publishing papers, doing patents, coming up with new innovative technologies, dedicating all these years for the cause of an electron which you don't see, and therefore by your logic and your funda you don't see it, and therefore what are you doing last one decade? You should well resign. And that put all of them into thinking. So yes, we can see, although God is not directly perceivable in this world from a superficial hedonistic perspective, but the signature of God is everywhere. It is said, that the art speaks of the artist, the writing speaks of the writer. Similarly, the creation speaks of the creator. The design speaks of the designer. Laws speak of the lawmaker. In fact, this is what is called as insight. Insight means to see the unseen in the seen. To read not just the lines, but read between the lines. So when one grasps that which is not so obvious from that which is obvious, then one's success becomes obvious. This is the formula for success. And therefore, we need to see creation from that perspective. These are all world famous paintings of various artists, various painters. When we see a painting of nature, immediately the question which comes is, who is the artist? So beautiful. Who has drawn it? But when we see the reality of which it was just a painting, when we see real nature, why don't we ask the same question? Who is the artist? Here, what you're seeing is an artificial rose. It's not either plastic. Now, if you see the artificial rose, can we say what are the attractive attributes in this artificial rose? We can see yes, there is a beautiful color, there is a 3D geometry attractive pattern, there is three-dimensional shape, there is uh, there is color, there is shape. That's quite attractive. So people keep artificial rose, to decorate their drawing rooms. We saw in our temple in COVID time, uh, even the deities were being garlanded with artificial rose because to get real flowers, there was a chance of infection. And how do you get real flowers? Because the basic supplies are only, were only in a crunch. So now this is a real rose. When you see a real rose, what are the attractive attributes of a real rose? Here again, there's three-dimensional shape, there is order, there is a beautiful attractive color. But in addition to that, there, in addition to fragrance, also there is taste. Who observe? And just to make the comparison complete, if you see a painting, what you're seeing back is an image of a lotus. It has two-dimensional shape and color. So when we see a painting, we have two attractive attributes. When we see an artificial rose, we have more than two attractive attributes. There is color, there is shape, there is 3D alignment, three attractive attributes. When we see a real rose, we have five attractive attributes. When a painting of rose cannot come without an artist drawing it, when an artificial rose cannot come without some manufacturer, and we cannot get it without going to Archie's or an equivalent stop, storehouse, how can the real rose come about? In fact, in origami, people make rows with paper, and it's quite an intricate skill which has, I mean, which requires some time and which requires some learning. So, question is, the artistry speaks of the artist. We can see marvelous, mind blowing organization and craftsmanship in nature. Let's have a look at the spider's web. Yeah, I'm just playing a small video clipping which explains about the organization and craftsmanship in a spider's web.
Mathematician spiders. Compared to their own sizes, spiders build very large webs. Indeed, if we enlarged a spider to the size of a human being, the length of the web it weaves would be approximately 150 meters, which corresponds to a 50-story skyscraper. Is it possible for a human being to weave a lacework the size of a 50-story skyscraper in only an hour? But a tiny spider accomplishes much more than that. Moreover, the spider-woven web is the sturdiest material in the world. How do spiders weave these webs possessing miraculous features? The spider takes into consideration many factors while weaving a web hundreds of times larger than its own size. This task demands at least some calculations essential in constructing a building. For the accomplishment of this work, first the spider must draw a project like an architect, for a construction of this size, design, and sturdiness cannot be accomplished without an architectural project. Once the project is drawn, the spider must calculate the lifting capacity of each part of the web like an engineer, otherwise the web cannot remain suspended. In order to design such a web and make such delicate calculations, the spider must be more qualified than a college graduate. Indeed, there is not a university that provides education to the offspring. Following their birth, they begin to produce silk, weave web.
It was not clearly audible. So it shows about the technology in a spider's web. If you take a steel strand and if you take the material of the spider's web of the same diameter, the material of the spider's web is 5 times stronger than the steel strand. The material which the spider ejects, it can elongate to 5 times of its original length. If you encircle the earth, that much material will only weigh 1 kilogram. So the scientists were studying this material of the spider's web, the technology in nature, and they wanted to come up with some artificial material which can come somewhere close or which can have some semblance, some comparison to this material, amazing material in spider's web. And they did research, they did chemical synthesis, they did a lot of experiments. They came up with a material which nowhere matches the strength of the spider's web, the material of the spider's web. But anyhow, this material which scientists discovered, this which manufactured, is called as the world's strongest material, called as Kevlar, and it is used in rocket propellants. It is used in bulletproof jackets. So you see, the point is here in the scientist in the company DuPont, they were researching on coming up with this material, and they were PhD scholars from world-class universities researching and coming up with synthesis to come up with an imitation material which mimics the technology of the material of the spider's web, and they failed miserably. But wherever they landed, that is called as world's hardest material, as Kevlar. Now the point is this, or the question is here: do you think when the spider is spitting out this material, do you think the spider is having various bottles of chemicals in his throat, and then the spider is thinking, okay, in what RPM revolutions I should revolve so that the right chemical, the right precursor chemicals can come and mix, and at what angle I should split so that the world's hardest material can come out? Not at all. The spider just happens to spit something, and what he spits is creating perplexities in the minds of scientists. The point is that. So now it means to say that, okay, a spider, and he happens to spit something, and there is so much technology in it which we have, which we with all of our intelligence cannot match. And the spider doesn't go to Massachusetts to obtain a graduate degree. Who has planted that intelligence, or who has installed that intelligence in such a tiny little creature like a spider? In this way, we can study the entire animal kingdom is filled with marvelous examples of technology, the technology in nature. In fact, in University of Melbourne, uh, we have a competition every year. It says that, okay, you have to come up with a new research idea, and you get $10,000 for that if you win. Uh, but the research idea has to mimic something which is happening in nature. So that's the protocol only. Don't come up with something of your own head. See something good in nature and try to come up with a solution which mimics it, and then the best solution of that will get a $10,000 in your pocket. So the point is, there is a super intelligent brain behind everything in nature. So organization speaks of the organizer. Likewise, we see wonderful things around us. We see sleek cars, someone manufactured it. Funny computers, someone assembled it. Elegant watch, someone designed it. Architectural marvels, someone erected it. Skyscraper buildings, someone built it. Wonderful sculptures, someone carved it. Shouldn't this universe have a super intelligent creator too? The creation speaks of the creator. Do you know which are the largest trees on the surface of the globe? They are called as redwood trees or sequoia trees. A particular sequoia tree will be having a height of 300 feet. That means almost like a 30-story building, much higher than the Statue of Liberty. The marvel is that, the marvel is that, or the amazing thing is that the size of the seed of this giant tree measures as is depicted only a centimeter. Sequoia or redwood tree is an example of a giant Such a giant, if you stand in front of it, will look like a mosquito. A giant in such a tiny package, the size of the seed of sequoia, 1 centimeter, and it stores or embeds such a giant, such a giant. So yes, a tree like this lives for thousands of years. Uh, the wood for of one such tree can make 50 six-room flats. You can put 180,000 basketballs in the hollow of one tree. It's fireproof. Uh, to embrace it tight, some 15 or 20 of us will have to stand to be able to just embrace it. That sequoia and its seed is so tiny. This is called as embedded systems. This is called as no, this is called as infinity in this is called as infinity in in a microscopic uh, package. Is it not? So we see that this field of packaging is a frontline research area in science, in technology. For example, VLSI. The entire goal of VLSI uh, is to manufacture more and more FETs, the field effect transistors, on a single few centimeter by few centimeter chip, on a small microprocessor chip. I remember when I was a student, one professor from ISI was giving a seminar. He said, "Okay, we can actually now manufacture a microprocessor with about five, FETs on it, MOSFET, PFET, uh, uh, and our goal is about six." And we thought, oh, the goal is 10 to the power 6. So we thought, okay, maybe in our final year project, we will do it. I was thinking, I'll do it. It's a good statement, like that. So we asked him, so by the way, in 3-4 years it will be done. He started laughing at us. He said, what do you think? You think it is so simple a problem like that? You're speaking like illiterates? He said, it may take 2-3 decades to happen. And then he started explaining complexities. Because when you are dealing at the atomic level, I mean, on the molecular level, you're dealing at such a small level, uh, then the circuitries mess up. There is a lot of heat because of the flow of too much current, too much energy all around. The whole microprocessor starts getting heated up, so it gets damaged. A lot of issues. It was researched. No, it was a very complex research statement like that. So that means, packaging such a giant complexity into a small microprocessor is a very complex research topic which requires a huge amount of intelligence. Packaging such a giant circuitry into a small seed, does it not require intelligence? Just like we can see sometimes on the mobiles, there is so much of functionalities. When your hands move, the entire circuitry unflows. And there is a huge amount of intelligence which has gone into designing it, into designing the operating system for the mobile, into designing how the mobile operating system can become more and more powerful, so that it can replace the computer. So much of intelligence. So we may say, okay, it's very small, it's a small box, like that. But then, when your hands move around on the smartphone, then the circuitry unfolds. Similarly, in a small seed, when time flows, the circuitry unfolds. So this is sequoia, 300 feet. Let's speak about intelligence. The most powerful computer in the world, the human brain, it says it can store more information than all the libraries in the whole world. But the interesting pun here is that But although the human brain can store more information than all the libraries in the whole world, when we go into our undergraduate years and we have 5 to 6 courses and maybe 5 to 6 books which have a few chapters course, but when we use all this brain which can store more information than all the libraries in the world, somehow in the examination, the information, so it becomes an arduous task to even memorize or assimilate 5 to 6 books. Why is it so? That's an important question. That gives a pointer that although there is so much potentiality to our own systems, the point is we do not have admin rights to this machinery of ours. That means we are a user, we are a tenant, we are not the owner. We have been given a login with only certain features. We can only access some features. Only so God is having the admin rights. He is the super admin login password like that. And when we connect to we can use this potentiality into our own body, into our own systems. Okay, the micro world. We see how complex the double helical DNA is. What to say of this double helical structure coming by chance? You cannot even draw it by chance. And if somebody thinks he can draw it by chance, he will get zero in the exam by chance. So when these atoms come together, they form crystals and so symmetric. And when you change the temperature conditions, then one crystalline structure changes its form into another crystalline structure. There is this Bravais lattice. The atoms are arranged, form a crystal lattice in very precise formulas. So the question is, who has made all these arrangements? Similarly, we can talk about allotropes. It's the same compound. One external observation is that okay, allotropes, graphite is carbon, diamond is carbon. The difference is in geometry, or you can say the difference is in bond angles. I want to say, okay, what is the intelligence in bond angles? To etch out a precise angle, to ensure that the exact angle is taking place. Now, if you want to understand what intelligence goes into that, we can see the area of missile technology. When you want to launch a missile at a particular target, which is 1,000 miles far off, then even a deviation of a few seconds, the angle in the shooting angle, will lead to a devastation. Will lead to a devastation. Uh, Instead of the missile landing in uh, Lahore, the missile may land in uh, the missile may land in Ahmedabad. So it may make such a long difference. So there is intelligence in maintaining that precision. Now, and we can see that in bond angles. The bond angle changes, the geometry changes, the properties change. Similarly, we can see planets rotating like a swab of corn. You see, the sun never gets up late like us. Our satellites require scientists involving so much intelligence, millions of dollars of money, decades of research, and many times our ventures fail. We saw, okay, the Challenger failed, the Columbia failed, the Discovery failed, and even if it goes into the orbit, it only stays for some dozen of years, and then it no and that's it, and then slowly the satellite which is orbiting around, it orbits in a spiral, so it comes closer and closer and closer in a helical form, and then it gets burnt out or it gets destroyed. So then you have to launch another one. But we can see cosmic satellites, their order of lifespan is millions of years. That means it requires millions of times of intelligence at least to set it. The earth is moving around the sun at such a high speed, But then scientists say if the distance between the Earth and the Sun were to change even by an inch, life would not have been possible on Earth. So who is in control? NASA. So here is being said that okay, the traffic of the planets needs the traffic police to control that. Yeah. Similarly, this slide talks about energy. In 1 second, the sun produces enough energy to meet the current needs of the entire Earth for 500,000 years. That much energy the sun produces in a second. So to understand the complexity, let's try to imagine taking a graduate project to supply lighting to the city Calcutta for a whole night. Artificial lighting to light each and every patch of Calcutta. It will be such a cumbersome and arduous project, which will involve so much of intelligence, involve so much of money, so much of efforts. The energy speaks of the energetic. Now we say, okay, let's look at the world around us. So till now we are seeing that yes, now there are precise laws in matter. If you look at the world around us, we see that yes, there are regulations, there are laws which regulate our day-to-day lives. The college starts at a particular timing. When the semester opens, the professor tells us, okay, this is now the professor gives us a schedule that your mid-semester and semester examinations are going to take this time. So there are rules, there are laws. Our day-to-day lives, follow the laws. The question is, who made this law? Just like the law of the school is made by the principal. So there is law of traffic. In India, it says keep left. In America, it says keep right. That's the law. Who makes a law? The government. The traffic police. The traffic department. So here we are talking about cricket. Suppose a game like cricket, which is so interesting and so captivating, just imagine a game of cricket without, sorry, uh, just imagine a game of cricket without any laws. There are no stumps, no wickets. Nobody knows how a person will get out. There are no boundaries. Nobody knows which is a sixer. I mean, there is no pitch. So nobody knows how much one has to run to make a run. How many of us will enjoy that kind of a cricket? It'll be a complete mess, is it not? It'll be a complete Brownian motion happening, people roaming, people dashing from one corner to the other corner. Uh, Instead of being a game called cricket, it may become very much like the scene we may see on a railway station sometimes, where people dashing here, there, everywhere. Nobody knows what is it one needs to tune to, what is it one needs to adhere to. So enjoyment comes, or we can say that we start relishing. It becomes adventurous, thrilling when there are laws and everyone adheres to those laws. Then you can see there are protocols. You can feel the adventure in sport. But without the laws, there is no sport. It's all randomness. It's all Brownian motion. It's all chaos. So we see that matter is following laws. This is periodic table. Not no, it is not called as periodic chance. We see matter follows laws. There are laws of physics. There are laws of chemistry. Matter follows laws. You know? In fact, now if you want to ponder over, we can ask a question. Like say, for example, we are seeing that okay, the law of gravity. The question is law of gravity Newton's law, or Newton just happened to discover it? Had the apple not fallen, it would not have been Newton. It would have been somebody else who would have discovered the law. It's God's laws, actually. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada many times would say that give God the Nobel Prize. It's God's laws. God has made these laws. In fact, If our electronics and mechanics do not follow laws, none of us will have jobs. Because it follows some laws, there are some formulae, we can apply those formulae, we can get some results, we get some salary, we have some work. If everything is completely random, then it will be a very precarious disposition. The macro world follows laws, we saw. Similarly, we can understand that we are also governed by laws, and laws means a lawmaker. Matter follows laws. Our day-to-day lives we can see laws. We are completely controlled by laws, and laws point out to a lawmaker. We can see in this world, some people are beautiful, handsome, some not so handsome, some rich, some not so rich. Somebody is an MD doctor, another person is a laborer. The question is, who decides? We can choose our education, we can choose our job, we can choose a partner, spouse. One can choose what car one has to purchase, but there are many things in life which one cannot choose. We can choose an apartment, that's fine, but we don't choose many things. First, our parents. We don't choose, we just happen to open our eyes and we say, okay, this is where we are, and this is how we have to learn. Uh, what's life all about? That's the whole point. So we don't choose. Uh, we don't choose our parents like that. Like I happen to fall in a family where they were all engineers. I had such a taste for biology, but whenever I would speak biology, psychology, people would look at me as if, no, what an ugly thing is about. We are all engineers, so we don't choose our parents. You know? So our face cut, we don't choose our face cut. It's the way it is, the way it is. Like one time, an actress, she did her nose was not was having a typical bent, which her fans were not liking very much. She did 12 operations, but then still her nose was very much like that same. And her fans said it doesn't change much. So we can't change our face cut. We don't choose our intelligence as well. Some people work so hard but don't get good results. Some people not no, don't work hard at all, but they happen to land up with good scores. We don't choose our intelligence. The question is who chooses and on what basis? And on what basis? So none of these are random events. Our lives are decided by God. God chooses. And what is the basis? The basis is called as the law of karma. So many times people will say that, okay, in this world, many times we are helpless when it is the fury of nature. We cannot control so many things. We see we have conditionings. Um, uh, we have limitations. Things don't happen the way we think. Yes, because God is in control. Because God is in control. That's the simple answer. Rather, we can see that, oh, so many times people may say, okay, why God is controlling? Why God doesn't give us freedom? And the simple answer is that, the control of God, because God has put everything in control, then therefore this world is like an extension house. So we see all what we need supplied by Mother Nature. People say nature, it's nature, it's God's nature. It's God's nature. He is in control. We can see that because God is in control, and now if we lead life with the positive spirit, the sports spirit, we can face the adventure which life brings about. Just like a sport, we can understand this is the matrix of success. This is the matrix will lead a principle valued life. Then your score can become high. We can see that happening. That's God in control, actually. Then people say, okay, then if God is there, then why is there suffering all around? Why is there suffering all around? God could have made a better proposal that you don't suffer. So to understand why suffering exists in this world, despite the presence of God, we need to understand the science or the law or the doctrine of karma, which is nothing but fact. Or rather, we can say that it is a generalization of Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you generalize this on human beings, then we can say, yes, as you sow, so shall you reap an effect. I will give you three situations. Please hear these very attentively. And, and try to think about what is the similarity in these examples and what is the difference in these three examples. Principally, if you see a hand, immediately you will get a question. Oh, how did it got burnt? How did it got burnt? It got burnt during cooking or what happened? Example number two. A person is having a lot of pain in the stomach. He goes to the doctor sees him. The doctor asks him a question. What did you eat yesterday night? Huh? Example number three. A person is feeling problems. Some problems in the respiratory tract. He goes to the doctor. He goes to the doctor. Doctor does his test. No, it's not COVID. And then the doctor asks him, when did you start smoking? So mark these three examples. The similarity in these three examples is that all of them are about cause and effect. There is a cause, there is an effect. No effect exists without having a one-to-one onto mapping with a cause. There is a cause, there is an effect. The person accidentally got in touch with fire, hand got burned. Cause and effect. Person overate, 6 hours later, he got a stomach upset, pain in the stomach. Person started smoking, thinking that he is Rajnikant, no? And then 2 years later, he gets some respiratory tract. So that is a similarity, but the difference is in the time scale. The first one, immediate effect. The second one, 6 hours. The third one, 2 years. So the point is, if the time scale between the cause and effect is increased, so much so, so much so, so much so, so much so, that you're having an effect now, but you're not able to relate with the cause. You're having an effect now, but you're not able to relate with the cause. Which cause it maps to? And therefore, because the cause happened way back, therefore, the question comes, why me? Why me? So suffering exists because of not following the laws of God. And God's laws are for our benefit, not for God's benefit. That we have to understand. Just like the doctors may give health prescription. If you follow that, it's good for us. If you don't follow that, we harm ourselves. So all these, the laws given in the Vedic scriptures, given in the Bhakti Shastras, these laws are for our benefit actually. They are the best algorithms for life, for a meaningful, for a successful, fulfilled life. And if you don't follow, we harm ourselves. So to give us indicator that we are going on the wrong track, there is the law of karma. If you do something wrong, we get a signal. That signal comes in the form of suffering. Just like a thief, first time he wants to do thievery, there is there is a huge loudspeaker speaking from within. Don't do it, mat karo. We call it as conscience. There is an alarm which is from the down. A person becomes hardened, he thinks who cares, he does it. And a person will see, okay, another thief has got caught and he has got been beaten up very badly by the police. So you see, he's in fear, he's in anxiety. So the thief is very fearful, he's in anxiety. So we need to take a signal. That's a signal, that's suffering. Whether it is existing on a gross platform or it is existing on a mental platform is an indicator that we are going wrong. Disturbance is a sign of deviation. We are going wrong. Just like in chemistry, if you follow the proper principles, the experimental modus operandi, you are going to get a very specific output. In computers also, if you follow all the commands, you are going to get a specific output. If you are getting some irregular output, that means your code was wrong. There is something wrong in the code, is it not? Similarly, gross level suffering, mental level disturbance, all these are indicators that we are deviating from the real laws which can help enrich our life. And that's why suffering is an indicator. Just like a professor, a good professor will give a series of examinations. He gives weekly tests, he gives surprise tests, then there is mid semester, then there is end semester, final examinations. Now, suppose there is only final examination, and if one flunks in the final examination, his whole year is spoiled. But now there is a test, and a student, he was thinking very high of himself, he gets a zero in the test, and nobody else in the whole class of 100 has got a zero. The person will feel very embarrassed. Ye kya ho gaya, no? I thought I'm a big macho man hero, I got a zero in the exam. So he'll start studying. But if he's studying, he will at least pass. He will at least pass in the finals because the test doesn't have that much weightage. Similarly, we see that these sufferings which exist in our life, these small sufferings which exist in our life, actually, yes, there are big sufferings also. Then there are small sufferings. So even at the stage of small suffering, we should take it as an indicator to set right our hearts, our desires, to cleanse our hearts, to cleanse our desires, to rectify ourselves, following the laws, the principles given by the Bhakti Shastras. So that's there as an indicator, as a teacher. In fact, we can see suffering is not just an indicator, a training methodology by the Lord, designed by the Lord to teach us, but suffering is also a signal which is Lord. Suffering is an expression of God's mercy, of God's love for us, because therefore He cannot interfering in our lives. Just like, let's take up an example. Just like one time, there was a small child, and this child is like sweets a lot, especially rasgulla. But because he was spoiling his teeth, his mother would not give him so much. So he was always not so happy with his mother because she didn't used to give him the amount of rasgullas she liked it. One day he came, he got up late in the morning, and he came out in the drawing room, and he saw that on one of the shelves on the drawing room, there was a packet of what looked like small but a lot of rasgullas. And he thought, so nice. I'm going to have it all. My brother has gone to school and mother is busy in cooking, and I'm going to eat it all. And this child was so excited, saying, Rasgulla, so nice. Mother is busy, the brother is not there, everything is mine. Today I will enjoy. And like this, but very carefully, in a very systematic way, so the mother doesn't get any clue, he was progressing towards this packet of what he was calling as rasgullas, but in actuality was naphthalene balls with a mint flavor. So, so because there was no noise, many times mothers are also very, there is nothing which is happening, then they understand that something wrong is going to happen. Because so therefore the mother came out wondering that this child is up to some mischief. And then she looked at the child behaved as if he was very innocent. And the mother said, you nonsense, what are you doing? I nothing doing. And the mother said, you're up to some mischief? He said, no, not at all. And then the mother went back. The child again was proceeding slowly towards the shelf. Then the mother again peeped on. The mother said, what are you up to? And now he was caught. He was caught. And the mother said, behave yourself, you nonsense, you fool, you come back. And like, no, I want rasgulla. And the mother said, no, that is not rasgulla, that is chichi. Today evening we'll go and you'll get rasgullas for you. And the child was crying. He thought, okay, my mother is playing tricks on me. I am not going to get bewitched. You know, these oldies, they think that they're too smart. I'm going to, not. I am going to be relentless today. And therefore, he sat down. After some time, again, he was up to his mischief. And the mother was shouting on the top of help. And the child was thinking, now that God, now I have to rush and get it. And then therefore the child started singing the song Sarfaroshi, Ki Tamanna. And the mother was shouting. The mother said, I will beat you a lot. And then the mother was understanding that this fellow is not hearing. So she said, I'll tell father he will beat you. And then the child was thinking, father is in my pocket, I'll cry tears, he will melt down. And like this, the child starting dashing, raging towards that shelf. Because he thought that okay, it's very less time, at least I'll get one scoop, at least 5-10 in the mouth. That, and the child was running towards this shelf to catch hold of this naphthalene. The mother was on the other side. And when she saw that, the child is up to such a deadly action. The mother, she dropped off her kerchief, which she was holding in the hand, and she ran towards this child. And this fellow had opened up the packet, and he was just about to gobble, these naphthalene, thinking them as Rasula. He was about to put his mouth. Mother came to him. She, uh, held his hand, make him throw all these naphthalene balls on the ground, gave him a tight slap on the face. And this fellow, he was skidding on the ground, making saucers, and he fell on the floor, the marble floor of the drawing room, with a big thud, head on. And his knicker had come out, and his shirt had become torn, like that. And that was his precarious scene. And the child was crying. And the child was thinking, my mother is so cruel. My mother is giving so much suffering. That neighboring auntie is so good. She gives a toffee whenever I go. My mother is so cruel. She's beating me up. She's such a cruel mother. Just imagine if a friend of the child had just come, and no, and he happened to just see the action scene, when the mother is, the action scene, when this fellow is, doing some stunts. I mean, not voluntary stunt, forced stunts like that, and he captures that in his smartphone, and then he puts it and makes that video viral, or makes a research paper out of it and publishes it in IEEE saying the mother is so cruel and I have evidence of that. Does it make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. Why? Because for a mother, it requires more love to slap a child than to embrace a child. And the same is true for God. So suffering, the Lord only gives when he sees that the living entity is missing so much that he has to be stopped somehow or the other. For it is an expression. Before the living entity messes even more, the God intervenes. And that's how nature intervenes. That's how nature gives us life. We may say, yes, sometimes the suffering takes a life toll as well. But yes, one who can give life can take life also to give another opportunity in another life. That faith we should have when we go on. Many scientists have appreciated, acknowledged the presence of God, as we can see. In fact, Lord Kelvin says, if you think strongly enough, you will be forced by science to believe in God. That means he's saying that if you do not believe in God, then you are a scientist of a very preliminary cadre. You're not matured enough. So, what is the origin of the universe? It's not Big Bang, it's not chance, but it's intelligent design. What is the purpose of the universe? It's to understand God and life. Now here is a question which has been put. It says that, okay, have you ever seen a complicated which has come by chance and which has no purpose? Just imagine an engineering college, say IIT, and its manufacturing lab. New machine has come as shown, and everyone is very excited to know what is this machine, and they are asking the professor as the professor comes. So what is this machine? What it does it do? Is it programming based? How can I program? What is the language? What all different items it can do? Can it do cutting? Can it do milling? What it can do? Uh, so on. And the professor looks at all of them very gravely, and he says that, you see, this is a universal testing machine, and this is a new machine which has been invented. And by the way, this machine has come by chance. Yeah, and this machine has purpose. Imagine an undergraduate manufacturing lab course in which you hear such a thing from a professor, PhD, from some elite university, world university. What are you going to think about? So, if I would have been a student, I mean, I would have been there to hear such a thing, then I would say, sir, it seems that your presence in the department of mechanical engineering has no purpose, and it seems that your degree of PhD in manufacturing processes, that has come by chance, it seems. Nothing else other than that has come by chance, it seems. So it's not the Big Bang. And banks do not do construction, banks only do destruction. It's a big brain which is behind this universe. So there is no point in talking about a point uh, which we cannot mathematically describe. There is no point in talking about the point which we cannot physically realize, uh, uh, which is beyond all concepts of space and time. Better talk about a person which is behind, which is who is super intelligent, who is behind this universe. So we see, in fact, if we see Mother Nature, we can see that just like there is a government of the country, we can see that the whole world is running by a universal government. By the services which we can find in the world around us, we can see that there is a universal government which is running. Just like uh, if you see law and order in a country, you can understand that Home Ministry is working very nicely. Similarly, when we see nature, we can see the effects of laws and order. If you want to encroach upon others' right, then nature retaliates. Just like if one is smoking, he gets a disease. One is drinking, he gets a disease. So that's universal government. That's the Home Ministry, law and order ministry working. Just like a medicine department will supply medicines, all kinds of medicines to the citizens, procure all kinds of medicines to the citizens. Similarly, we can see there are all kinds of medicine supply which are naturally existing in the world around us. There are herbs, there are all kinds of medicines. Just like there is Ministry of Energy, we can see the energy arrangements, the power plants. The sun and the moon are the power plants in the world. Similarly, we can see just like Finance Ministry arranges for the RBI manufacturing nodes, we see, okay, uh, in a similar way, we see gold, silver, etc. Just like there is defense ministry protects from dangers, there is immunity in our body, there is ozone which exists. There are these defense mechanisms which are existing in nature, which gives us an understanding that yes, there is an entire government which is working. There is this whole government which is working. So yes, behind every government there is prime minister. Behind the universal government there is God. God maintains and controls the whole universe. And if the citizens abide by the government laws, then they can live very happily and prosperously. Similarly, if we abide by God's laws, we can be most happy because those laws are meant for our purpose. So God exists in that behind this universe. It is explained that just like you can see a pearl necklace, God is like the string on which all these pearls are resting. That's how the unseen is proven by the seen. And therefore, our prime duty should be to use one's intelligence to appreciate the great brain of God, to use science to glorify God's creation, to create a worldwide spiritual awareness to understand and explain the purpose of God's creation. So, in fact, we can see our existence is tuned in for God. When we take off God from our lives, we make ourselves into an orphan. Then every move in this world is so dark, so dreary, and we have nobody. But when there is God, then one understands that yes, my Father is there with me, who is going to guide me at every step. Just like you can see sometimes in a crowded local in Mumbai, everyone is so irritated, it's so crowded, it's jam packed, there's not an inch to move, people's faces are very irritated, and they're slightest, I mean, it's a very messed up, irritable situation. And you will see in that heat, there is a small baby, being carried by his mother. Everybody is irritated, everybody is, dhakka mukki going on. But the small child is peacefully sleeping, bindas. Why is bindas? Because he understands mother is there, take care of him. Similarly, we can develop our moves and strides can develop that confidence only when we make God as the center of our lives, as the center of our activities. Similarly, people even on a universal scale, people may talk about brotherhood. Srila Prabhupada used to say that there is no concept of brotherhood without introducing the concept of fatherhood. If there is fatherhood, there is going to be natural brotherhood. Just like in a foreign country, if you meet somebody from your own community, then there is immediate bonding which takes place. You can strike roots. Similarly, if you strike root with God, then you can relate with entire humanity with the same amount of love and feel for yourself. That's the point. That's why we can see that, in fact, love of God is like that seed, and that seed actually blossoms when that same love of God exudes or blossoms. That love of God manifests as compassion for humanity, as compassion for humanity, and therefore we can see that our whole existence is wired, tuned for God, for God. Just like a laptop doesn't function powerfully when it is not connected to the charging supply. Similarly, when we are not connected to God, we will see our enthusiasm, our energy, our positivity, our values, our spirit, everything goes on depleting and degrading because we are not connected to God. So I will end with a small story. Just imagine that there is a race, there is a vehicle race, say on the NH highway from say Kharagpur to Calcutta. There is a race, 120 kilometers race. And there are two contestants in that. One of the contestants has come, enthusiastic, and he has come on a Luna. Hamari Luna. He's come on a Luna to fight in the race. To participate in the race. And the second contestant is there on a sleek, newly purchased model of Benz. Now, if I ask you the question, who is going to win the race? You're going to tell me you're asking an absurd question. Who is going to win the race? Come on. It's the Benz who's going to win the race. Now, here comes the point. Here comes the question. Can a Luna never win the race? You say, no, the Luna can never win the race. Okay, unless some accident happens, some problem happens, because there are only two contestants. No? If one of them no accident, then the other is what to do? But we have a doubt whether the Luna will be able to drive 120 kilometers also or not. Is it not? So now the point is that in life, somebody is like a Benz, somebody is like a Luna. Now, if I ask the question that if I am a Luna in life, is there any hope for me? And the simple answer, the simple direct answer which comes is that no, there is no hope. Under every ordinary circumstance, there is no hope for you. So, what is the magic of divinity in the whole scene? Now, just imagine the race is going on, and all of a sudden, a helicopter comes in between. And the lunar driver, along with the Luna, hooks himself to the helicopter. Now, who is going to win the race? The Luna or the Benz? When we may have inherent deficiencies, limitations, inabilities, challenges, incompatibilities. So our structure may be like that of a Luna. But we have to understand God is like the helicopter. When we connect to God, then we move at speeds which can overcome all inabilities, all limitations, and we will be winner for life. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. So now we can have some time for question answers. If you have some questions we can discuss right now, and you can even yeah. So you can type your questions if you want to, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. You want them to uh, press Alt A to unmute your microphone and press. Hey, I think it's muted. So they can unmute themselves and ask questions. Right? Possible. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask some questions. We can take a few questions now, and so think about what we have discussed. Uh, Muse over it, ponder over it. Uh, we can talk about geometry once we understand the Cartesian system. Then we can start once we fix the origin. Then we can talk about different geometrical shapes and how to make beautiful and intricate shapes. Therefore, in the same way, when we want to bring about meaning in our life, we need to understand the origin, the source, the glacier of all meaning and fulfillment. That's God. So when we tune to that, then everything starts becoming auspicious. Just like laptop may now after some amount, so after some time a laptop may get discharged and it may remain lifeless, dead, unless the electricity supply comes in, and then it's like the laptop comes out not alive. Similarly, we will see that when we tune into God, then our each and every move, our small daily activities will become deeply meaningful, and auspicious for us, for our near and dear ones, and for the world at large as well. So with this, we'll end the session for today. We thank you for your. Okay. There is a question. How would you describe? Uh, how would you describe God? We can understand God. We can understand God from understanding the point that we are imperfect, tiny parts of God. We are like a small particle of gold, and God is described as a mountain of gold. So qualitatively, we have traits of God, but the problem is we have those traits in an incomplete, messed up way because we are tiny fragments of God. So there is an apt definition of God. There are many definitions of God which are given. So we can understand that yes, our nature, if you take it to our nature is imperfect, it's tiny puny. God is like the ocean. So if you study our traits, positive traits, and if you scale them, all of these traits will have some limited values. If you scale those values to infinity, that manifestation is God. Therefore, Parashar Muni describes God as a personality who is all attractive. He says this all attractive feature has 6 attributes in it. God is all knowledgeable, is all strong, is all beautiful, is all renounced, he's having all fame, he's having all wealth. So 6 things. We may have all these things or some of these things in minute quantities, but God has them in full. So Prabhupada would say that so God in Bhagavad Gita, God is described as God is described as the source of everything. One who is the source of everything and who doesn't have a source himself, like that. So we see, so God is that source. The Lord, no, so it is explained. So God is that source, that very platform, eternal platform on which this entire concept of time is also resting. So you see, this axis of time is having creation, annihilation, birth, destruction, birth, death. So if we see this whole aspect of creation, now we may say, okay, God is the person who's created everything. Now we may say, okay, who has created God? So by definition, God is the person who has created everything because the entire concept of creation is a temporary concept. And the time scale of eternality, there is nothing called as creation and destruction. The energetic always exists, therefore the energy always exists. But creation only happens with a particular form of the energy. When the energy is given a particular form, we call it as creation, and when it gets deformed, it is called as destruction. So that means that the creation and destruction itself is like uh, is a concept which is like a novel which is created by the writer who is God. Just like a novel creates an era. There are personalities in the novel. Obviously, these the novel has dead personalities. I mean, they are hypothetical personalities. Now, God is that writer who created this framework of time, and He has put all of us into nations with a given kind of conditionings based on our desires and what no, and the karma, so that we can try to search meaning in our lives. So that's how we can understand God. And that's how we can understand that yes, God does not have a creator, because the concept of creation is also a creation. God is eternal, and so are we. So God is that energetic behind all the energies of this world, including us. We are also energies. I hope it makes sense. Uh, yeah. Okay, one last question. One of our prime duty is to use is the use of intelligence to understand the great brain of God. But do we have that level of intelligence to understand what the great brain of okay, so do we have the intelligence to understand the great brain of God? Yes. So what is most important for us to understand is that God's brain is really great, and we have to use great intelligence to understand that God's greatness greatly surpasses our great conception of his greatness. That much we can understand at least, and that is good enough for us. We may not be able to completely understand how this universe behaves, how many dimensions this universe has, what is this element of soul, how this material energy interacts. That may be very difficult for us to understand in totality. But what we can understand is uh, uh, our eternal relationship with God. And we can understand that yes, God's greatness is truly great. It's greater than uh, the great conceptions which we may have about God also. So therefore, so therefore we can understand. So therefore, greatness lies in understanding that that greatness lies in understanding that let me take shelter of the greatest. That's what we should understand. So we should make our lives perfect, and our lives can become perfect when we surrender to God, connect to God. Are soul and consciousness different? Yes. Consciousness is like the energy. Consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Soul is the energetic. Consciousness is the energy. Just like we can say, okay, tube light is the source, the energetic, and light, which is prevalent in the whole room, fluorescent light, that is the energy. So consciousness is a symptom of life, chetana or consciousness. Consciousness is defined as, in very simple terms, we can define consciousness as the ability of thinking, feeling, willing. So this consciousness is a symptom of the soul. It's like an energy. The energetic behind that is soul. So consciousness is not identity, but what is our identity is the soul. What is the benefit of adding God in our lives? What is the benefit of adding God in our life? We see life is not meant for a conquest of matter. We may run after things, but if you try to, the people run after money, people run after uh, a big bungalow or car, or so we may run after things, but ultimately we need things. We need things to reciprocate in relationships. One may be having money, if he doesn't have any relations, any loved ones, it may be a dreary life for him. So it is relationships and reciprocation in relationships which give us happiness. The more selfless the relationship, the more happiness we feel in that relationship. So friends may chill out, may feel happy. But then when we do something which brings joy to, say, our parents, we may feel greater happiness when we see tears of joy in our father's eyes, in our mother's eyes. Why? Because the relationship is more selfless. So we have an eternal relationship with God. Therefore, when we reciprocate in love with God and use the things of this world, the material energy, the nature we interface, we interface, as an offering of love to God, we can feel the happiness, experience the happiness which we are always searching for, which we are always looking for, which we are always made for. So the Shastras explain, many different Shastras explain, the Vedas also explain, the Bible also explains that we are like a prodigal son, a lost son of a millionaire father. And we are struggling to make our ends meet. We are struggling to battle out the anxieties, the disturbances which come in our life. And if we, uh, so now it's like a son, a lost son, is begging for food, for alms, but he doesn't understand his father is a millionaire. If he goes back to his father, all these inabilities, all these discrepancies will be solved. That's what happens when you go back to, when you connect to God. That's what happens. So in relationships as well, our anxieties of mind are just because these anxieties are like the virus. But we have the God is like that vaccination, which will not allow any of these viruses to come in. So one can lead a healthy life, a happy and prosperous life, this life, and one will also prepare for after this life, because the nature of the spirit doesn't end with this body. That's what happens when we add God in our lives. Each and every day, each and every step will become much more meaningful. So when a person dies, does soul die or conscious, or either of them don't die? Yes, when a person dies, so consciousness is a symptom of the soul. That means consciousness is the effect of the soul. Whenever the soul goes, there is consciousness. So when a person dies, what is happening is that so the soul ejects the body. It is the gross body which dies. So body is like the vehicle. If the driver goes out of the vehicle, then the vehicle will not move. Similarly, when the soul goes out of the body doesn't move. And therefore, and because the soul has gone out, the symptom of the soul, that is consciousness, also goes out. So the soul does not die. The soul does not die. In fact, the Shastras explain very technically, we will elaborate on this in our future sessions as well, but the Shastras explain that just like there is this gross body which is left behind, there is a subtle body which consists of mind, intelligence, false ego. So this subtle is basically the entanglement. That which covers or entangles the soul is a subtle body. So the subtle body takes the soul into the different body, into the next body, into the next body. And what kind of next body? The karma decides. The karma decides. It's based on what kind of desires a person is having. And just like whatever you simulate on the computer and you give a print command or you give a 3D printing command, that is the shape which will get printed, 3D printed. In a similar way, whatever type of activities one does, one gets a body which is suitable for that particular kind of activity, what kind of desires one has. So it's not the soul. So it's just the soul leaving the body. This is the soul leaving the body. We have to understand we are eternal as spirit soul. So soul is a very interesting subject matter, and one particular session we will devote to go into the depths of reincarnation and the characteristics of the we will discuss the anatomy, the chemical composition, the morphology of the soul in one of the sessions. We will do that. Okay, so I thank you all very much. If you have further questions, you can post your questions to us, and uh, where do they have to give the feedback? Okay, so we are sharing with you a Google form, and you can share your feedback in the Google form. And if you want, you can put your questions as well there. And rest assured, we will make our best attempt to answer your questions. So we stop here for today. We will meet again. Next Saturday, same time, with our next session. I believe our next session is going to be quantum and consciousness. So from quantum mechanics, quantum methodologies to consciousness. So it's going to be an exciting session. It's going to be an exciting session. Be there with us for the next week. I thank you all for your enthusiastic participation and sparing so much time to be here with us. Uh, Surely, God will be happy with all of your sincere attempt actually to make lives more meaningful. And in this way, so this is in fact what we are doing right now is what is called as a yagya actually. That we are coming together to see that how we can make our lives more meaningful for ourselves and for the world at large. And rest assured that when we go towards God, we are taking a strong step towards that objective. I thank you all very much, and We will be together again next Saturday.